welcome. I hope you are doing well. So today we are going to discuss about design of field experiments. I got several requests to cover this chapter as this chapter is very important from exam point of view. In any kind of competitive exam related to agricultural sciences, questions can be asked from this chapter and we'll try to cover the chapter in different parts. So today in the first part, we are going to discuss about various principles of design of field experiments. Okay, so let's start it. So coming to field experiment, why field experiment is needed? So generally a field experiment is needed to test a hypothesis, to confirm a hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? So hypothesis is basically a statement based on the limited evidence before starting of any further investigation. So based on our basic knowledge or based on our past experience, we may assume some statement to be true. So that is known as a hypothesis. I'll give a small example to explain what is a hypothesis. For example, do you know brown manuring? So brown manuring is generally a practice of growing sesbania or crotalaria along with the main crop for a period of 20 to 35 days, after which a selective herbicide like 2,4-D is applied to kill the brown manuring species. Okay, so generally this brown manuring is practiced in case of rice. But in case of maize, this can also be practiced because 2,4-D, which is used in case of brown manuring, it is selective to maize crop. So this is our basic knowledge. We know that 2,4-D is selective to maize crop, means 2,4-D will not kill the maize crop. Okay. Similarly, another thing is that rice is also a group member of Gramini family, and also maize belongs to the same family. So with this basic knowledge, we can build a hypothesis that this brown manuring practice can also be done in case of maize for weed management. Okay, so based on our basic knowledge or based on our past experience that we have seen that brown manuring is a successful in case of rice. So based on this knowledge, we have applied or we have assumed that, and we made a hypothesis that brown manuring can be successful in case of maize. So based on that, we will provide a statement, and based on this statement, to prove that statement, we have to further investigate the thing and we have to do a field experiment. So the main purpose of field experiment is to prove or to confirm a hypothesis, and hypothesis is basically a statement based on the limited evidence or past knowledge before starting any further investigation. I hope the concept is clear. Then hypothesis can be of two types: null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. So I'll just give another example. So here I will try to build a hypothesis. We know that nitrogen increases grain yield. Okay, so suppose in case of maize, if we will apply nitrogen, then grain productivity will be increased. So that is our basic knowledge. But we don't know up to what kg of nitrogen maize will respond. That we don't know. But our past knowledge and our basic knowledge, using that, we will build a hypothesis that maize or nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will give the maximum maize yield. Okay, will give the maximum maize yield. So based on our basic knowledge, I have built this statement. Okay, this is a hypothesis. So null hypothesis is also known as hypothesis of rejection. This is generally indicated by H0. So null hypothesis says that nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will not give the maximum yield. Okay, will not give the maximum maize yield. So basically, null hypothesis is the hypothesis which should be rejected if the experiment is successful. So our basic aim of the experiment is to know whether nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare is giving maximum maize yield or not. So that is our basic aim of experiment. If our experiment becomes successful, then we can say that nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will give the maximum maize yield. And under this situation, the null hypothesis will be rejected, because null hypothesis is nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will not give maximum yield. But our experiment shows that nitrogen at 120 kg per hectare giving maximum yield. So here null hypothesis will be rejected. That is the reason why null hypothesis is also known as hypothesis of rejection, because if experiment becomes successful, we have to reject the null hypothesis. Then another type of hypothesis that is known as alternate hypothesis, indicated by H1. So alternate hypothesis says that the nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will give maximum maize yield. Okay, so basically alternate hypothesis is nothing, it is just opposite statement of the null hypothesis, and it is clear that if our experiment becomes successful, null hypothesis will be rejected and alternate hypothesis will be accepted. Okay, I hope it is clear now. Then coming to next, that is there may be two types of error during the interpretation of result. We have conducted our experiment. Okay, we have conducted our field experiment, and now we have got different data and results. After that, we have to interpret that result. So during interpretation, means based on our result, we have to accept null hypothesis or we have to reject null hypothesis. So during this process, there is a chance that we may commit some mistakes or we may commit some errors. So those errors can be of two types, that is type 1 error or type 2 error. So type 1 error is basically the rejection of null hypothesis when it is true. It means null hypothesis is true, but we are interpreting the result in a wrong way and we are rejecting the null hypothesis. So we are here committing one error, and that error is known as type 1 error. So I will give the example. So here the null hypothesis is nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will not give the maximum maize yield. So it is the null hypothesis. But suppose in our experiment also we are not getting the same result, means in our experiment also 120 kg nitrogen per hectare is not giving the maximum yield. So here the null hypothesis is true, but in spite of it is true, we are rejecting the null hypothesis. So under that situation, we are committing the type 1 error. Then what is type 2 error? So type 2 error is accepting null hypothesis when it is false. Suppose we are getting the maximum yield at 120 kg per hectare. Okay, so here in this case the null hypothesis is wrong, but we are interpreting the result in a wrong way and we are giving our result as that nitrogen application at 120 kg per hectare will not give the maximum yield, but in actual case it is giving, but we are just interpreting in a wrong way, means we are due to data analysis or in some way we are just giving the wrong information. So that is known as type 2 error, that is accepting null hypothesis when it is false. Okay, then coming to next. So in any kind of field experiment, three things are important, that is treatment, experimental material and experimental unit. So we'll take the same example, that nitrogen application in maize. So treatment is nothing, it is the object of comparison. So treatment is the object of comparison. So in our case, we are taking nitrogen. So here nitrogen is the treatment. And remember this thing, the treatment consists of different levels. Okay, so different group of treatments are known as levels of treatment. So to find out at which dose of nitrogen maize is giving maximum yield, so we have to take different doses of nitrogen. Suppose I have taken N0, that nitrogen at 0 kg per hectare, nitrogen 50, N50, that is nitrogen at 50 kg per hectare, and N100, that is nitrogen at 100 kg per hectare. Suppose I have taken 3 levels of nitrogen. So here we can say the treatment is the nitrogen. So nitrogen is the treatment. And N0, N50 and N100, these are the different levels of nitrogen. Okay, so I think it is clear now what is a treatment and what are the different levels of treatment. So basically, what is our experiment? I will just give a brief idea about our experiment. So now we are interested to find out the nitrogen dose at which maize yield is maximum. So this is our objective, and to find out this, we'll take different dose of nitrogen, N0, N50 and n100. It means we'll conduct a field experiment, and in this field we will grow the maize crop, and we'll convert different plots. We'll convert the field into different plots, and in one plot we'll apply N0, means no nitrogen will be applied. In one plot 50 kg nitrogen will be applied. In next plot 100 kg nitrogen will be applied. Suppose maize yield obtained 1 ton per hectare when no nitrogen is applied. When 50 kg nitrogen is applied, maize yield is, for example, 2 ton per hectare, and when 100 kg nitrogen is applied, maize yield is 3 ton per hectare. In hypothesis, we have taken 120 kg, so better we should take it 120 kg. Okay, so it is N120. Here we can say N120, nitrogen at 120. So we have taken 3 doses of nitrogen at 0 kg per hectare, 50 kg per hectare, and 120 kg per hectare. So we have conducted a field experiment to know at which dose of nitrogen maximum yield is obtained. Okay, so this is a field. This is one type of field experiment. So here nitrogen is the treatment, and different levels of nitrogen are N0, N50, and N120. Okay, then coming to next, that is experimental material. What is an experimental material? So experimental material is the material on which experiment is conducted. Here the plots are known as experimental material. Experimental material may be plot or soil, it may be plant, or it may be animal. It means any kind of subject on which we are conducting experiment is known as experimental material, and the smallest unit of experimental material is known as experimental unit. Okay, so I will give another example. For example, we are interested to know the optimum dose of a drug on animals. So here in this case, animal is the experimental material and drug is the treatment. And different doses of drug, suppose drug at 0 milligram, drug at 1 milligram, drug at 2 milligram. So these are the different levels of the drug. So treatment consists of different levels. Okay, so I hope it is clear now. So now we are going to solve some questions, and side by side we'll also try to understand the concepts. So the first question is, which of the following are the elements of experimental design? Estimate of errors, control of errors, proper interpretation of results, and all of this. So here the correct answer of this question is, it is all of this. So what is estimate of errors, and what is control of errors? So before that, we should understand what is an experimental error. So for that, I will give a small example. Suppose we have two varieties, variety A and variety B, and our objective is to know which variety gives the maximum yield. Okay, so to know which variety is giving maximum yield, we have to conduct a field experiment. So what we have done, we have just grown variety A and variety B, and we got that the yield of variety A is 2 ton per hectare and yield of variety B is 1 ton per hectare. Okay, but based on these things, we cannot conclude our experimental result, because this difference of 1 ton is mainly due to whether it is due to the varietal effect or some other factor is also affecting, that we are not sure. So to know whether this experimental result is conform or not, we have to conduct the same type of experiment in the same type of plot adjacent to that. Suppose here I will conduct another experiment, means same experiment, but I will grow in another plot variety A and variety B. And if here the variety A is also giving 2 ton per hectare and variety A is giving 1 ton per hectare, then only I will be sure that the difference in this yield is mainly due to the varietal effect, and we can say that variety A is performing better as compared to variety B. Okay, but if, for example, variety here the variety A is giving 1.5 ton per hectare and here the variety B is giving 0.75 ton per hectare. Okay, for example. So here it is the same field, we are also growing the same variety, the climate is also same, then why the difference is there? That is not known to us. Okay, so sometimes due to some extraneous factors, experimental result may vary, even if the experimental condition is same. Here the experimental condition is, and here the experimental condition, both the conditions are same, but here the yield from the yield of variety A and here the yield of variety A itself, it is differing. Okay, so this suggests that there are some factors which are affecting the yield of variety A from the situation 1 and from the situation 2. So under this situation, there are some extraneous factors, and these extraneous factors may be inherent soil fertility or soil moisture holding capacity or something else. So the difference in result, result of plots treated alike, it means these plots are treated in a same way, but there is a difference in the result, is due to some extraneous factors, and the variation in the result due to extraneous factor is known as experimental error. Okay, so under any field condition, when we are conducting a field experiment, there is a chance that error or experimental error will come, and to minimize that experimental error or to control that experimental error, so we have to first estimate the experimental error. Where is the error? So first we have to identify or estimate the error, then we have to control error. So to minimize the experimental error and to increase the precision, we have different principles of design of experiments. Okay, so what are those principles of design of experiments? So our next question is, what are the principles of design of experiments? Those are replication, randomization, and local control. So here the correct answer of this question is all of these. So there are three principles of design of experiment, and main principles of design of experiments, main aim of these principles are to increase the precision of field experiment while reducing the experimental error. So I hope it is clear now. Then coming to next question, that is repeated application of a treatment under investigation is known as replication, randomization, local control, or all of this. So here the correct answer of this question is replication. So I will give the same example. Suppose we have two varieties, those are variety A and variety B, and we are interested to know which variety is giving highest yield. Okay, so to get the answer of this question, we have to conduct the field experiment, and I will grow the variety A in 3 different plots. Suppose these are the plots in which I have applied the variety A, and these are the plots where I have grown variety B. Okay, so why I am growing variety A and variety B in 3 different plots? Because if I will grow the variety A and B in one plot only, then this will not give the 100% assurance that whether the yield difference is mainly due to the varietal effect that we have already discussed. So to avoid that, we have to conduct the experiment in different plots, means we have to apply the same treatment in different plots so that it will give an estimate of error. So how it will give the estimate of error? Suppose in this case, variety A is giving 2 ton per hectare, but in this case, variety A is giving 1.5 ton per hectare, and in this case, variety A is giving 1.7 ton per hectare. So if there is any variation, this variation is mainly due to the experimental error, because these variations are due to the extraneous factors. So in this case, we can take the average of all these 3 things. Okay, and similarly in case of B also we can get the same thing. So to know whether our experimental result is 100% sure or 100% correct or not, and is there any variation within the same treatment when they are grown in different plot. So to know that, we have to replicate the treatments in different plot, and this is known as replication, that is the repeated application of the same treatment, and it is done to estimate the error. Then coming to next question, that is which of the following both estimates and controls the experimental error? Replication, randomization, local control, or all of these? So here the correct answer of this question is replication, because replication not only estimates the experimental error, it also reduces or controls the experimental error. So now we'll see how replication can reduce experimental error. So there is a formula, that is standard error. So standard error is standard deviation divided by root over of replication. So we'll discuss the formula in detail in subsequent classes, but for now you just remember that the standard error or experimental error is inversely proportional to square root of replication. So by increasing the number of replication, standard error can be reduced and the precision of the experiment can be maximized. Okay, so that is the reason why replication should be done, and the main purpose of replication is both estimating the error and controlling experimental error. Then next question is, up to what number of replication we should adapt? Okay, so it is clear from that, increasing the number of replication, the error will be minimized, error will be decreased. So it is a good thing. So if there is a good thing, that is by increasing replication we can reduce the experimental error, and our main purpose is to reduce experimental error, so we can go for any number of replication. But it is not like that, because conducting a field experiment is also a matter of cost. If we are applying the same treatment on the same plot for a number of times, then we should have a larger area. At the same time, we are also growing a crop in different plots, so we should have also that budget. So it is not always feasible to go for maximum number of replication. So what should be the minimum number of replication for a desirable quantity of precision or a considerable lower amount of experimental error? So what should be the minimum number of replication for a considerable lower amount of experimental error? So that we have to know. So there is a rule that the number of replications should be such that the degree of freedom should be more than 12. Okay, so the number of replication should be such that, so we have to select the number of replication in such a way that the degree of freedom should be more than 12. So now we have to discuss what is the degree of freedom. So this degree of freedom is very, very important. So try to understand this. I will just give a small example to make you understand what is the degree of freedom. Suppose you are a cap lover. Cap lover means you are liking to wear cap, and you have 7 different types of caps with you. So you have 7 different caps with you, and you like to wear caps, and you want to wear different caps on different days of a week. So there are 7 days in a week. So you want that in every day you will wear a different cap. So for example, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So there are 7 days. Suppose on Monday you just select one cap for you. So there are 7 choices are there because you have 7 different caps. So on Monday, when you will select one cap for you for Monday, so on that day you have 7 different choices. And when next day, Tuesday, when you are selecting one cap for you, then there are 6 caps for you because you have already taken one cap on one day, and that cap you will not wear again. So you have to select out of these 6 different caps, you have to select one cap. So similarly, on Wednesday, you have 5 options. On Thursday, you have 4 options. And on Friday, you have 3 options. On Saturday, you have 2 options. And on Sunday, you just have 1 option left. So what I mean to say is that on Monday, you have 7 different options. On Tuesday, you have 6 different options, and so on. And on Saturday, you have 2 options. And on Sunday, you don't have any options. So the degree of freedom means freedom to choose your cap is up to Saturday only. It means that the freedom of choice choosing or freedom of choosing cap for you is for 6 days only out of 7 days, because on last day you have to wear the final one. So in this example, the degree of freedom is 6 days. It means you can wear or you can choose the caps for up to 6 days only. Okay, so remember the formula. The formula of degree of freedom is n minus 1. So in this case, n is 7. So degree of freedom is 7 minus 1. Okay, so this is the degree of freedom calculation. Now we'll see how the number of replication will affect the degree of freedom. Okay, suppose we have 3 different levels of nitrogen. 3 different levels of nitrogen. That is N0, N50 and N120. Okay. So if I will take 3 replications of these 3 treatments, then what will be the total number of treatments? I have taken 3 replications of each treatment. So here we can see the total number of treatment will be N is 9. Okay. So in this case, N is 9. So if we'll calculate the degree of freedom, then it is N minus 1, that is 9 minus 1, that is 8. But as per our rule, the minimum degree of freedom should be 12 for considerable lower amount of experimental error. So what we should do? We should increase the number of replication. So if we will increase the replication to 4, now the N will become 3 into 4, that is 12. Still in this case, the degree of freedom is 12 minus 1, that is 11. Okay, so still it is not more than 12. So it will also not be considered. So then we have to further increase the number of replication, that is N is equal to 3 into 5. If we will take 5 number of replication and 3 number of treatment, then total N will become 15. And here the degree of freedom will become 15 minus 1, that is 14. So in this case, we can take 14 because 14 is more than 12 and the minimum degree of freedom required for more precision or considerable level of precision and considerable lower amount of experimental error is 12. So 14 is more than 12, so we can take 5 number of replication. So in this way, the replication is affecting the calculation of degree of freedom, and we should take the replication number in such a way that the degree of freedom should be more than 12. So here you can see the number of replications should be such that the minimum number of degree of freedom will be 12. So the correct answer of this question is 12. Then coming to next question, that is which of the following gives an unbiased estimate of experimental error, whether it is replication or randomization or local control or all of this. So the correct answer of this question is randomization. So remember this thing. Replication gives the estimate of experimental error, but unbiased estimate of experimental error will be provided by randomization. So what is randomization? Randomization is a process in which the treatments are allowed or allocated to experimental units randomly. So randomization, it is a process of treatment allocation. It is a process of treatment allocation to experimental units randomly. Okay, so why randomization is needed? So for that I will give a small example. Suppose we have a field in which there is a fertility gradient. Fertility gradient means fertility gradient. So fertility gradient means in one end of field fertility level is higher, and generally this fertility will decrease in this direction, and it is the lowest at the end of other end of the field. Okay, so if we'll take different plots in this way, and we are allowing or allocating treatment variety A and B purposefully alternatingly we are allowing this AB. So always A will be grown on the high fertility as compared to B. Okay, because fertility gradient is in this direction, means fertility level is becoming lower one after another. So here always A will be grown in a higher fertility as compared to B. So that will lead to some error. So to avoid that, we should allow or we should allocate the treatments to the experimental units randomly. And for random allocation of treatments to experimental units, generally random number table is used. Random number table is used. So what is random number table and how we should arrange the treatments randomly on the experimental unit, that we will discuss in the subsequent classes. when we'll deal with various designs of experiment. Okay. So now, for now, just remember that randomization is a process of treatment allocation to experimental units randomly, and it is generally done to have an unbiased estimate of experimental error, and generally random number table is used to allocate the treatments. Then coming to next, that is in local control, within block variation should be minimum or maximum, or it should be equal to that of among block variation, or none of these. So to understand this question, we should first understand what is local control. So local control, it is a tool or it is a principle or technique which is applied to reduce the experimental error. Okay, so the main purpose of local control is to reduce the experimental error. So how this local control will reduce the experimental error? So this local control generally uses the blocking technique. So what is this blocking technique? I'll give a small example. Suppose we have a field in which there is a fertility gradient, and clearly this side of field has a high fertility and this side of field has a lower fertility. So what we'll do, we'll just group this side of field to one block, and we'll give this is block 1, and we'll group this side of the field as block 2 and give the block 2. Okay, so blocking technique or local control says that the grouping of, so it is the grouping of homogeneous experimental units, grouping of homogeneous experimental units into one block. So this is the first thing. And second thing is allocation of all treatments to each block. So in our example, we have already grouped the homogeneous experimental unit because this side of field has higher fertility. So we group this side of experimental units into one block. Suppose there are 3 experimental units or 3 plots in this block, and in another block also 3 experimental units or 3 plots are there. Okay, and the second thing is allocation of all treatments. For example, we have 3 treatments, N0, N50 and N120. So allocation of all treatments to each block. So in block 1, we have to allocate all the treatments N0, N50 and N120. And also in B2, in block 2 also we have to allocate all the treatments, that is N0, N50 and N120. Okay, so 2 things are important: grouping of homogeneous experimental units in the block, and second is allocation of all treatments to each block. And remember this thing, this grouping should be done in such a way that within block variation should be minimum, and among block variation should be maximum. So in this case, if these are the experimental units, suppose 1, 2, 3 experimental units, so within this block 1, the fertility variation should be minimum, and among this block B1 and B2, the fertility variation should be high. So here we can see higher fertility and lower fertility level is there. So among block variation is maximum, and within block, here also high fertility, here high fertility, here high fertility. So within block variation is minimum. So blocking should be done in such a way that within block variation should be minimum and among block variation should be maximum. And we should compare the different treatments within a block, because the effect of different treatments within a block is mainly due to the treatment effects, and we are just separating the experimental error based on our knowledge, because before starting the experiment we have already known that there is a fertility gradient. So we have already avoided that error by dividing the field or grouping the field into different blocks. I hope it is clear now. So this is known as local control, and local control is generally done to reduce the experimental error. Then coming to next, that is local control is generally accomplished by uniformity trial, maximum curvature method, or Fairfield-Smith variance law, or all of these? So the correct answer of this question is uniformity trial. Okay, so uniformity trial is generally done to know the fertility gradient of a field and to make or to prepare the fertility contour map of a field. Generally, uniformity trial is conducted. Then what is this uniformity trial? I will just give a brief idea. So in this uniformity trial, for example, this is our experimental field, and in this experimental field there are different experimental units, and in all experimental units we will grow the same crop of the same variety. So we will grow the same variety and we will provide the same level of management in all experimental units. Okay, after that we will harvest the crop separately from each experimental units. Okay, so we will harvest the crop separately from each experimental unit. Okay, after that we will just record what is the quantity of harvest. For example, from this experimental unit the harvest amount is 2 ton per hectare. From this it is 2 ton per hectare. From this, for example, this is 1 ton per hectare. Okay, so similarly we'll harvest the crop separately from each experimental unit and we'll just note down the what is the quantity of yield, and based on this yield variation we'll just group different experimental units. For example, from this experimental unit the yield level is higher. Okay, so we'll map this as these units are, this portion of the field is high fertility. Suppose from this portion the yield level is lower, so we'll group this experimental unit as the lower fertility level. So in this way we'll just prepare the fertility contour of the experimental unit, and using that fertility contour we can group the experimental unit into different blocks and we can allocate every treatment, means all treatments, to each block. So another thing is that during this blocking technique one thing is very important. This is because we know that plot size, so remember this thing, when the plot size is higher or more, when the plot size, experimental plot size is higher, then precision level is higher. Remember this thing, precision level is higher. And when the block size is more, then within block variation will be more, and our principle says that within block variation should be minimum and among block variation should be maximum. So if the within block variation is increasing, it means it will reduce the experimental precision or it will increase the experimental error. Block is generally consisting of different plots. Okay, so by increasing individual plot we are increasing the precision, but when the block size is increasing then the precision is becoming lower. So these things are in opposite direction. So we have to identify the optimum plot size. So remember this thing, optimum plot size should be in such a way that the experimental error should be minimum. Okay, so definition of optimum plot size is the plot size at which the experimental error is minimum. Okay, and optimum plot size can be estimated by maximum curvature method and Fairfield-Smith variance law. So remember this thing, this can be an important question, that optimum plot size can be estimated by which methods. So it can be estimated by maximum curvature method and Fairfield-Smith variance law. Okay, then coming to next question, that is the length of plots within a block should be dash to the fertility gradient for minimum error, whether it should be parallel or perpendicular or 70-degree angle should be there or any angle should be there. So here the correct answer of this question is parallel. So this is very important question. So see this figure, from this figure it will be clear. Suppose this is our experimental field. Suppose fertility gradient is in this direction, it means fertility level is higher or highest at this point and fertility level is lowest at this point. Okay, so under this situation, remember one thing, the plot should be rectangular one. The first thing is the plot should be rectangular one, and the length of the plot, it means the length of the plot should be parallel to the fertility gradient. We can see here the length of the plot is parallel to the fertility gradient. Okay, but these plots makes one block because block is consisting of different plots. So this block is also a rectangular one, and the length of the block, okay, here the length of the block or a longer side of the block, it should be perpendicular. It should be perpendicular to the fertility gradient. So this question is very, very important. So remember this thing, the length of the plot within a block. If it is length of the plot within a block, then it should be parallel. It should be parallel. So here we can see the length of the plot is parallel to the fertility gradient. And if it is length of the block, if the question is length of the block should be, then it is perpendicular. It should be perpendicular to the fertility gradient because fertility gradient is in this direction and the length of the block is perpendicular to the fertility gradient. So these are some basic principles of design of experiment, and various designs of experiment will cover in subsequent classes. These classes are very, very important. I hope all the concepts are clear till now. So if you like the video, don't forget to press the like button and share the video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. And we are very nearer to 1,000 subscribers, and upon reaching the 1,000 subscribers, we'll conduct a live interaction class. Thank you for listening. Take care.